If someone asked you to imagine a person with an extremely high IQ, your mind probably jumps to the stereotype. Lab coat, calm smile, maybe glasses, speaking in polished, perfectly timed sentences. The kind of person who steps into a room and somehow just radiates certainty. But the awkward reality is that this picture is almost completely off. The people who land in that tiny top slice on intelligence tests usually don't move through life feeling like geniuses. A lot of them spend a ridiculous amount of time convinced they're faking it. They're up at 3 in the morning, not because they're building the next world-changing idea, but because their brain has decided it's the perfect time to rewatch a conversation from years ago in painful detail. They mutter to themselves. They misplace basic things, and when you actually look closely at how their psychology works, it's far messier and far more human than the movie version. So if even a little bit of this already sounds uncomfortably familiar, stay with me. Let's walk through 7 strange habits that often show up in people with very high IQs, and see how many feel a little too close to home. One of the most reliable patterns you see is chronic self-doubt. People with very high cognitive ability often assume they're performing worse than they actually are. They're not acting humble to get compliments. At a structural level, they genuinely believe they're less competent than others see them. Studies on performance and self-judgment find something interesting. The higher someone's true skill, the more they tend to underestimate where they stand, while those with lower skill often overestimate themselves. A simple way to see it is this. When you understand a field deeply, you can see everything that exists in it, including all the places you still fall short. When you barely understand it, you have no sense of what you're missing, so you feel weirdly confident. For very bright people, this creates a kind of background hum of "I don't really belong here." They quietly suspect that everyone around them has misjudged them, that they've somehow slipped into rooms they aren't qualified for, and eventually they'll be exposed. And the difficult twist is that the smarter they are, the more detailed the internal argument against themselves becomes. The same reasoning power that makes them excellent at complex problems also makes them experts at building a case for why they're not enough. Often, the person most equipped to be there is the one most convinced they shouldn't be. Another habit. A lot of very high IQ people are naturally tilted toward being night owls. This usually isn't just a lifestyle choice, it shows up in the data as a consistent pattern. Research by Kanazawa and others has linked higher measured intelligence with going to bed later and waking later, even when you control for work and social obligations. One evolutionary explanation is that deliberately pushing against your built-in sleep rhythm for abstract reasons, to read, think, code, write, or just explore ideas, is a relatively new kind of behavior in human history. Brains with higher general intelligence seem more likely to do this. In day-to-day life, this means many very smart people are living out of sync with a world built around early mornings. They drag themselves through alarms, school times, office hours, never quite feeling like their body has caught up. From the outside, it can look like laziness or poor discipline. Underneath, it's closer to a nervous system whose natural clock runs on a different schedule. You also see a lot of talking to themselves, not just in their head, out loud. In the kitchen, in the car, wandering the aisles at the store. Psychologists call this private speech, and it's a well-known tool the brain uses to guide itself, plan, and stay organized. Putting thoughts into actual words changes how the mind processes them compared to silent thinking. In many high IQ individuals, language is used as a tool for thinking, not just for conversation. When there's no one else around to help them sort through a problem, they just become their own dialogue partner. The awkward side effect is that occasionally they realize someone has just watched them debating with the air in a parking garage, and they have to pretend they were absolutely on a call the entire time. Another pattern that doesn't get talked about enough is the link between high intelligence and worry. Several studies have found that people with higher verbal and cognitive scores also report more anxiety and rumination. One idea is that the same mental machinery that makes complex analysis possible also makes vivid, detailed worst-case scenarios very easy to generate. The brain at its core is a threat detection system. A more powerful system doesn't automatically mean a calmer one. It can mean a faster, sharper scanner that notices more possible dangers, real or imagined. So high IQ people often find themselves running simulations non-stop. What if this happens? What if that fails? What if they think this about me? Some of which are genuinely frightening. On the outside, they might look composed. On the inside, the projector never really turns off. Then there's the forgetfulness. Not big abstract concepts, but very ordinary things. Keys, messages, birthdays, whether they locked the door. It frustrates the people around them, and it frustrates them even more because it seems to clash with the image of being so smart. A useful way to understand this is attention and priority. A mind that spends a lot of its energy on complex, abstract problems often gives less bandwidth to routine, low-risk details. The keys will probably turn up somewhere, so the brain quietly pushes that to the background in favor of whatever problem feels more meaningful in the moment. It doesn't make the missed details less annoying, but it does make them less mysterious. Another habit that shows up consistently is a wide, flexible vocabulary, including swear words. There's research suggesting that people who can generate more taboo words on the spot also tend to perform better on general verbal fluency tasks. In other words, being good at cursing is often part of being good with language overall, not a sign that someone has run out of better words. For many high IQ people, words are tools, and they care about precision. If the most accurate word for a situation happens to be a short, sharp four-letter one, they use it. Finally, there's something many describe only after they realize it has a name: sensory overload. People with very high cognitive ability are more likely to report feeling overwhelmed by noise, crowds, bright lights, or certain textures and environments. Some research connects high cognitive processing with higher sensory sensitivity. The brain that takes in more information on an intellectual level may also take in more raw sensory input. A busy restaurant that feels fun to most people can feel like an assault of sound and movement. Fluorescent lighting, overlapping conversations, background music, it all comes in, and very little gets filtered out. Because of this, a lot of high IQ individuals quietly arrange their lives around controlled, low-stimulation spaces, dim rooms, noise-cancelling headphones, specific routines. Not because they're picky or dramatic, but because their nervous system is already running at a higher load than anyone around them can see. Put all of this together, and the picture you get is not a flawless genius gliding through life. It's a person who is genuinely bright in ways that matter, and also tired from living inside a mind that never lets up. They're insightful and capable, but also anxious, self-questioning, forgetful, awake at wrong hours, having half-whispered arguments with themselves in the car, and genuinely shocked by how intense a simple night out can feel. If you see yourself in this, in the doubt, the late-night spiral, the way your brain takes everything just a little further than you asked it to, that recognition counts. Not because intelligence makes anyone's struggle more special, but because a lot of people with this profile are told they've got every advantage and then quietly wonder why moving through the world still feels so unusually hard. Now you have a clearer picture of why that might be happening, and that it isn't just you.